Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at StarWarsMeanToYou. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.
Hello there, this is Elora, and I'm a Prequel Trilogy kid.
And this is Dave, and I'm an original trilogy kid. And you're listening to What Does Star Wars Mean to You? The show where we talk to all kinds of fans of the franchise, from industry insiders to indie artists, from obsessive mythologists to mega collectors, all for one goal: to take the hate out of the debate by focusing on one fan at a time to find out, what does Star Wars mean to you? Plus, it's just fun to chat Star Wars.
Yeah, welcome, if you're listening, as you are, to our episode between episodes. This is where Dave and I will deep dive on our favorite aspects of our previous guests' interviews, and then just kind of deep dive anything generally that we want to talk about that's interesting to us that week. Maybe it's inspired by our guests. Maybe it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's our chance to chat Star Wars.
Exactly. Last week, you heard us interview Rose Hawk, who's brand new to the franchise.
Yes. And she has a great energy and observation of the franchise. Like, I guess she just started watching about 5-6 weeks ago.
Yeah,
and
a month.
She's kind of a internet, not sensation, what is it? A viral video. Like, a lot of people are watching her watch this for the first time. And that's a really kind of a neat thing, too, is being able to see someone come to the franchise and experience it for the first time.
And have such a positive reaction from the fandom. Like, people who are genuinely excited to, like, go on that journey with her and are, like, completely spoiler-free and really nice. I mean, she could only think of, like, one instance of, like, somebody being kind of, like, mimicking like that troll behavior, and it was somebody who was like, stop talking while you're watching the movie, and we're all like, that defeats the purpose of a response video. So she's had a really overwhelmingly positive reaction for the internet,
which is like a great thing unto itself.
Oh yeah, that right there. I was like, teach me your ways. How do I find the side of the internet that's not going to bully me for trying something new?
Yes.
What were your favorite takeaways from our conversation with Rose?
I think the first thing is very kind of macro, which is this idea that she got to binge the first 6 episodes, episode 1 through 6, and she watched it in release order. So she watched 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3. She got to experience that as one full story as her first experience with Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I just think that's an amazing way to do it because, you know, I think that what we usually say is there's always an on-ramp for Star Wars fandom. And it's usually when you're 10 and it's that first movie you see. So like we say, I'm an original trilogy kid. I grew up with the original trilogy first, and then 16 years after that was done, saw Phantom Menace and then the prequel trilogy. And then you grew up with the prequel trilogy first and went back and watched Star Wars. She has this very unique point of view of having seen it all in kind of one go. And I think that's a very interesting viewpoint.
Oh, yeah. It's like, I mean, it's truly taking in such an epic story all at once. It's like binge reading the Iliad. Like, it's it's just, that's a lot of content. One of the things, like, in terms of her, you know, starting with the original trilogy that I loved was when she was talking about, she watched the first 3 episodes and then ended up watching a documentary on behind the scenes as to how it was made.
Yes.
And I loved when she was saying that, like, not only did it blow her mind that, you know, the limitation and effects and stuff that we obviously had in filmmaking at the time, and so how they got around that with the small models and, like, all this other kind of movie magic that they did. I loved her appreciation for that. And I loved how she recognized what that brought to not only the genre, but to like filmmaking in general, like to cinema and the story. And that she remarked, I think at one point, that she wished that they had all been made the same way because over time it kind of loses a little bit of that
magic realism. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what the right word is, but there's something. There's something that just can't be replicated.
That physical presence, I think, is the feeling of
the whimsy.
The whimsy. What just came to mind while you were saying this was how she has kind of done almost every nerd's journey, or she has done every Star Wars fan's journeys in a way, in the sense that she watched the movies and then was like, how do they make this? And then dove into the special effects making of it, as opposed to just going, okay, those were those movies, let's move on to the next movies. I think that says a lot about her, too.
Yeah. What else stood out?
One of the other things that really stood out for me was when she was talking about the battle between Yoda and the Emperor at the end of episode 3 and saying how the Emperor is literally tearing apart the Senate in order to destroy Yoda.
Yes.
And I had never thought of that before. I had never thought of the symbology of that.
My brain.
Yes. Yes. I had that same reaction where I was like, wait a minute, you're making me look at this from not a completely different point of view, but a new point of view of, yes, this represents Palpatine tearing apart the Senate. I loved that. I don't know. I just kind of loved that little addition to my symbolic look at the films within themselves.
It's fun when somebody finds or illuminates or gives more meaning to an element of something that you felt like you already fully understood.
Yes.
That's actually a really cool thing. I love to look at things like that in a new way. I too was blown away by that. I had to laugh when she compared Yoda to Bernie Sanders. Because I had never thought of that. And
Do you remember that? I forget what it was. It may have been 2019. There was that Bernie Sanders meme of him sitting in a lawn chair at some kind of presentation.
At some function,
Yes, yeah. I think it'd be funny to take him on a lawn chair and put him on top of Luke, upside down Luke on Dagobah, as if he's the one training Luke.
Oh, we love you, Bernie. The other thing I loved was, I love it when our guests talk about the love stories within Star Wars and that it's really a story about love. But I appreciated her almost sympathy for Darth Vader. Mostly on the kind of the Anakin side of things. This is somebody who's so new to the franchise and has not read any of the books or anything yet and doesn't have that perspective of Anakin's inner monologue during, that period of time in the prequel trilogies becoming Darth Vader, how twisted and tortured of a villain Darth Vader is. We're not excusing Darth Vader's actions here, but, he's a complex fella, and we all know it. He's got some complexity and some depth going on, and I loved that she clocked that immediately, and her surprise that there was a human under the suit that she thought was just almost kind of droid-like. Into the greater appreciation for Darth Vader as a character once she got to know Anakin. I don't know. I just, more and more as we talk to folks about the story and anytime Darth Vader, Anakin comes up, I just find myself also doing deeper reflections on Anakin as a character.
Yes.
I'm constantly blown away by how much I get surprised in myself as to how much I feel pain for him as a character because he does a lot of really despicable things.
He does.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this. I just loved that she was Anakin's interesting and Darth Vader's interesting and these characters are so much more complex than, just being the antagonists of the story. And I liked that a lot. I'm excited for her to go on her Anakin journey. Maybe that's what I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing you reminded me in talking about her reaction to the Anakin Vader.
Mm-hmm.
I also really appreciated that she loved the end of Return of the Jedi where Vader, she even said this is one of her favorite lines from the movies. Vader says, "You already have," which is just a favorite moment of mine too. It was just great to see that still resonated even today.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of points in our conversation with her where I think things got a little bit more meta because, Star Wars in terms of kind of the good versus evil, I think has been a really solid metaphor for how a lot of people feel in our political climate right now. And that definitely came up in our interview. And I think that there's something inspiring about Darth Vader's kind of redemption arc as maybe evil can fall and find good again that folks are clinging to.
Yes.
Yeah. And that might have been what I was circling on beforehand here is that there's hope in that. And he's a really good representation for that hope as a character. Should we roll the tape?
Yes.
But then in a actual deep way, like we've said throughout just talking today, the story of hope and the deep politicalness of this, watching this as a woman who is fearful in our country at this time, it gave me an ounce of hope that okay, yeah, maybe just 10 people can decide this shit isn't what we want and it can actually mean something. So I feel like that is a thing that I was afforded in itself, is watching it in this day and age and watching it in 2025. Having no preconceived notions, it struck me so much deeper for those notes outside of the love story, outside of the silly Ewok characters.
Yeah.
That overall just feeling of oh wow, he's wanting to just gain power just to gain power, and he's lying to all these people, and he's brainwashing all these it was just that note alone.
Yeah.
So for me, Star Wars means hope. It means a newfound enjoyment and outlook on even just everyday little life moments.
No matter how dark things can get, there's always light, I guess.
Yeah. You just got to choose it. Yeah.
Yes. Should we go into the data pad?
Let's do it. Into the data pad. Okay. So we thought for this week's In the Data Pad, we would talk about Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
You are laughing so hard.
I know. It's just the way you went into the data pad. I just loved it. I was like, I, as soon as I hear things like that, I'm like, oh, I'm going to steal that. I want to make that my ringtone. I want to make that the bumpers for all things.
We were playing Split Fiction last night, and there's one challenge level where there's an announcer, and you're trying to dodge lasers and stuff. So that's probably what that came out of. It's my little announcer voice. In the data pad this week, we thought we would do a deep dive on Qui-Gon, but specifically the battle with Darth Maul.
Yes. During the interview, we had a bunch of questions for her, and then we realized maybe because she's so new to the franchise, we should ask, do you have any questions that you think that you want answered? And she did have a really good question, and here it is.
What's actually funny is that she called us out on not asking if she had questions.
I know.
Yeah.
So we did. We asked her if she had questions.
One question that I have of just a story, there's a million questions I have, but one question I have, episode 1, Qui-Gon being in between those little vortex spaces with Darth Maul, who my hated character, hated him.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck was going on when he bowed to him? Was he just getting mind warped? What was in between those little things that he did? Do you know what I'm talking
about? When he kneeled and meditated while Darth Maul was pacing, and there was they were force fields, I think, that were separating.
Okay, so yes, who put up those force fields? Was he meditating on his own self-will, or was okay? I didn't know if he was getting sucked into Darth Maul's powers.
I really liked your answer to this question. I had never thought of it like that.
Yeah, and it just so happened. So one of the things, what I said was that Qui-Gon was meditating, and Darth Maul was pacing like a caged animal, and that this was like a representation of the dark side and the dark side and the light side, where the dark side is very aggressive and patient, trying to get right to the battle, and the light side is more patient, willing to plan, willing to think things out. And that George Lucas was actually just showing us the difference between their fighting styles, and not just their fighting styles, but the fighting styles of the dark side and the light side.
Yeah, I could also, I was thinking on this too. I think that's exactly dead on. And I think it's interesting because I rewatched the scene in preparation for this recording, and I kind of somewhat forgot, because I haven't watched Phantom Menace in a long time, probably since the
since
anniversary in theaters. Yeah. But I kind of semi forgot that Obi-Wan is also separated from Qui-Gon. They're kind of moving through this laser field with Darth Maul, and they're all separated, and it almost kind of represents a bit of a testing ground in my head as well. Is you have and there's 3 different phases in the journey. You have your oppressor, but then you have Qui-Gon, who's kind of taking this time between matches or spars
yes
to kind of seek a deeper connection with the Force, another deeper understanding, like you just outlined. And then you have Obi-Wan, who is kind of impatiently waiting to get through and break through. And I feel like that's a really good representation for the fact that he's done being a Padawan. He's ready to be a Jedi. He's eager to go.
Yes.
I don't know. I just
no,
I thought it was
really
kind of representative of where they both are in their journeys as Jedis.
I think that's fantastic, because Obi-Wan is kind of straining at the reins to get into being a Jedi, to shed his Padawan rat tail. And
it's kind of emblematic too of how Anakin is. Eager.
Yes.
He's eager. He feels he's ready.
That's so true. Oh, that's a good one. I like that. The other thing about that moment, and I saw this, it just happened, I saw this as a meme 2 weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, is someone was like, this is what Qui-Gon was seeing while he was meditating. And they showed, they have Qui-Gon meditating, and then they edit in little scenes of the growth of Anakin, and he's paired with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's battling Dooku, he's being seduced by the Emperor, and the idea is that Qui-Gon is witnessing all of this in the past, and it's almost like Doctor Strange in not Endgame, the one right before Endgame, where he's seeing the multiple paths towards success of defeating Thanos, and he finds that one path, and that's what Qui-Gon kind of does. He's meditating on what's the one path to success, and he sees all the way until Luke is I knew there was still good in you, and Vader is redeemed. And after he knows this, he's ready to finish the fight and face actually his fate of being killed at Darth Maul's hands.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's the catalyst for the prophecy.
Yes.
He's the Iron Man in that situation. It's almost as though he has to get out of Obi-Wan's way. Is that kind of, I think, maybe?
Yes. He kind of he knows he's going to die, but he knows his death will mean something.
Yeah, it has a bigger purpose.
Yes. I've never really thought more than beyond the representation of the master, of the student being killed, much like Obi-Wan is killed in A New Hope. Qui-Gon is as Obi-Wan's master, and as a representation of Obi-Wan ready to step into the next part of training, his master is killed. Yeah,
and I feel like there's also this, there's a depth there too in Qui-Gon was kind of a bit more independently thinking as a Jedi. I mean, his council didn't really agree with him on this prophecy of the Chosen One. He kind of had a very solitary journey in that respect.
Yes.
He wasn't necessarily I don't know, I would make the argument that he wasn't, especially if you're reading Living Force, and I know this goes outside the scope of this one scene, but I don't think he was fully engrossed in like the traditional Jedi teachings. I think he had a little bit more of a spiritual take on it all.
Absolutely.
And his power as a Jedi kind of crumbles a little bit, with Darth Maul, obviously.
Yes.
But that doesn't necessarily mean he hadn't mastered his skill, but there was a vulnerability there. And that I think what it also represents is that like even the greatest strength or focus like can't guarantee a victory. Like there's so many external factors that play into that. And I think that that's also what Obi-Wan had to kind of contend with as well, becoming his own Jedi master with his own now very young apprentice. Although I guess they start them younger. I guess that was the issue actually, was that Anakin was too old.
Yeah,
right?
9,
yeah.
Too old.
Yeah, it was way too old. But this now kind of maybe not very young, but contentious. People had like concerns.
Yes. Yeah. Anakin was a hot button topic, that's for sure.
Yeah. And that he has to kind of like, I think he has this internal battle between like the more spiritual teachings of his master that he respected so much, but then also having to now, come to terms with like the failings in that as well and what that means for him as a Jedi and for him as a master and a teacher. And I think you see that play out in Obi-Wan's journey. I feel like he has a little bit of Qui-Gon, but like he's not the embodiment of.
No,
kind of like took what worked for him. Yeah.
Yes. So he was aware that maybe all the masters didn't have a full lock on exactly what the Force was, and that there was maybe something more to it than what he has learned from the masters as opposed to what he has learned from Qui-Gon. That's so true.
Yeah. There's a challenge in training someone who's potentially as powerful as Anakin. That's got to weigh heavy on him. And then, but he also is recognizing the flaws in the Jedi Council's methods, but I think he was also recognizing the flaws in his own master's methods. And so, that's a tough spot to be.
It's like being between two force fields while your master is about to get killed.
And that's full circle. I actually think that that's what that was supposed to represent. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. How did we Star Wars this week, Dave?
Well, this week we read Mask of Fear. I mean, I guess it wasn't just this week, but...
I was going to say, this took like about a month of time.
Yes, but we did read Mask of Fear, and we wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
I guess review it. Now, this just came out in February. It's written by Alexander M. Freed. He's the author of other Star Wars books, Star Wars: The Old Republic, The Lost Sons, as well as many short stories, comic books, and video games. So the background of this book, it takes place like directly after Revenge of the Sith. It's like a week later after the events of Revenge of the Sith. And basically this is from the publisher. With one speech and thunderous applause, Chancellor Palpatine brought the era of the Republic crashing down. In its place rose the Galactic Empire. Across the galaxy, people rejoiced and celebrated the end of the war and the promises of tomorrow. But that tomorrow was a lie. Instead, the galaxy became twisted by the cruelty and fear of the Emperor's rule. During that terrifying first year of tyranny, Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera, and Bail Organa faced the encroaching darkness. I'm going to say something about names in Star Wars books in a second. And I'll jump back to that. I just want to say that out loud because I'll forget by the time I end this paragraph.
Okay.
One day they will be 3 architects of the Rebel Alliance, but first each must find purpose and direction in a changing galaxy, while harboring their own secrets, fears, and hopes for a future that may never come unless they act. What I wanted to say about Star Wars names is I really wish they put the pronunciation of Star Wars names, because as we discuss this, there's a couple of names in here that, and you'll know them because you listened to the audiobook. I didn't. And I'm going to be like, oh, that's how you say the name?
Putting a lot of credit in my remembering. You want like a rundown, like a fantasy map at the front of some books. It's just like the phonetic,
name, and the phonetic spelling. So, spoiler alert for Mask of Fear. If you have not read this yet, we're going to be talking spoilers a little bit because we're
don't turn us off, but maybe like fast forward 15 minutes.
Yeah, just 15 seconds. You know what? I'll put a chapter break there. So just hit to the next chapter and you'll be fine.
There you go. Perfect.
Watch, I forget to put the chapter break in.
Someone's like, fuck you, Dave.
Yeah. You didn't put the chapter break in.
So now that they're spoiler warned,
yes.
How do you, I don't even know how to begin. This book was kind of a lot.
It was very intense. I think it is very much in the world of Andor in tone and feeling. It's much more, I hate using this word serious just because I think all of Star Wars is serious, but this has, and I want to say less fun, but that's not right either. It's less of an opera and more of a drama. Let me put it that way. It's space drama, not as much as space opera.
I think there's some Star Wars books, and I say this as somebody who, is still reading their way through the very expansive Star Wars library. So, take that with a grain of salt. But there's some Star Wars books that are, I feel like, more philosophical, or even, in the case of this, case of Reign of the Empire, suspiciously of the times.
Yes. And is it present? Is it?
Yeah, present. There's a lot of a commentary of our world that is in these pages, I feel like. And that just, I don't know if, I agree with you. Like, more serious doesn't feel like the right phrase because we take all of Star Wars seriously. Obviously, we host a Star Wars podcast. But, I think that when you really see your reality on the page, it kind of like starts to bleed from fantasy to, I don't know, I found myself having to pause several times and just kind of sitting with the fact that this book felt a little bit like a mirror.
Yes. Yeah. It
to
feels
our society right now.
It is a very political book, and the politics in it, just as the politics within the prequel trilogy, episodes 1, 2, and 3 kind of reflected the times in 2000s. This is still telling that same kind of story that reflects the same kind of times, even though we're 25 years later. 25 years later.
Well, and that's been a commentary on platforms like TikTok. Like, there have been folks that are talking about how when they were children, so like my generation, when they were children watching the prequel trilogy, feeling like it was a little unrealistic that, like,
Yes.
the trade and like the Trade Federation would have such an involvement in the downfall of democracy, and then we're all turning on the news like, oh, interesting, maybe that wasn't so crazy.
It is really shines a light on George Lucas's ability to take reality and make a fantastical story out of it that is still very real.
What were your main takeaways?
I saw it as this is very Games of Thrones in its structure because each chapter is from a character's point of view.
But primarily it's kind of the trio of the rebellion and all of its various, like, I felt like focusing on Mon, Bail, and Saul was kind of like, I saw it as like 3 legs to the table, right? Like, you needed all 3 for this to happen. Like, they would not have achieved, because we all know where the story goes, they wouldn't have achieved where they were going without each other, even though at times they saw each other as their opposition to the same result. Like, all the elements that need to kind of exist and come together in order for a rebellion to form. I thought the book did a really good job of painting that picture through those 3 characters. Yeah,
I agree because Mon Mothma was kind of like the strategy and intelligence. Like, well, Mon Mothma also was very much like of the government and how do we work the levers of the government in our favor. Bail Organa was much Organa. I always say Organa.
I know, me too.
I will say this. I will say this every time we talk about Star Wars. My favorite thing about Star Wars is people within the movies pronounce names differently.
Yes.
Just based on who they are. Like Lando Calrissian always says Han, and everyone else says Han. So let's not get caught up with the pronunciation of names. But what I was saying was that Mon Mothma was like, let's see how the levers of government work best.
Mhm.
Bail was, I want to say, much more kind of the idealist and like, let's all work together. And Saw was much more the grit and strategy and the extremist. Exactly. He is an extremist. And I thought that was really, I agree with you. They were like three legs of the table that you could not have one of them.
Yep.
One of the things I really, I would just say overall, I really loved this book. Like by page 100, which is the typical page where I either really get into something or it's dragging on.
Yeah.
By page 100, I got sucked in, and I thought it was a wonderful read, and it highlighted some things that I didn't think about, but when they did it, I was like, oh, yes, of course. For instance, Bail Organa, his storyline through this is coming to terms with what happened to the Jedi. Like, he was obsessed with the Jedi in this. And
he's in grief.
He was in grief, exactly. And how does he reconcile that, what he witnessed, which was just the slaughter of the Jedi? I mean, he was there at the temple when it happened, and trying to prove that the Empire did it, and then finally realizing that this was not the way to go. That was a great story arc that I didn't know I needed, because I never really thought about it until we were on this journey that, oh, he is in grief, and he has to make that, and trauma, and he has to make that transition of, I have to get over this, because he's going to have, I mean, we know this, he doesn't know this, but he has 20 years still within the Senate and within the rebellion. So that aspect of the story I just loved.
Yeah, that, I think it's a good reminder through his story that the stuff takes time. That, the urgency to find answers, to prove innocence, to change systems, like all of the things that he really struggles with throughout the book. And in ways that, he's putting himself and his liberty in so much risk. He does a lot of, really kind of rash decisions.
Yes.
I think that he also has a lot of information that weighs heavily on him. I think he has an intimate knowledge of Padme's passing and what that meant, and of course, what his daughter's relationship is to the brewing empire and the dark side, and this kind of looming mask of fear, which I want to get to at some point. I thought the lack of Vader was fucking fascinating, but anyway,
that's right. Yes. Yes,
they managed to my God, how many pages is this book? It's over 450 pages, and it still had so much tension and fear, and you didn't need to use their main
boogeyman,
oppressor and tool once.
Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right.
And so it's just the beginning, right? Yeah, that he kind of has to, he goes on a very roller coaster journey, both to his psyche, and of course his physiologically. He really goes through it.
Yes, he gets beat up quite a bit to get to the point where he realizes this is going to be a slow burn. Yeah. The other thing I learned about Bail is, man, he is like a dog with a bone. He suspected the Empire of doing the Jedi dirty, and he would not let go of any strand he got. And that's a side of Bail I'd never really thought of or saw before. How about Mon? She was, look, because of Andor, I kind of love Mon Mothma. It's just the actress who portrays her is really fantastic in kind of casting her as the straight out of Revenge of the Sith Mon Mothma is really fantastic in the way she was written. I felt captured her essence completely. And also I really liked that she had a trauma of her own, because of the petition of the 2000, the delegation of 2000, because of that, she was arrested. not really arrested. She was detained. She was kidnapped.
Pretty horrifically detained, yes.
Yeah. She was
tortured
kidnapped.
Is a word I might use.
Yeah, she was kidnapped by the authorities and pretty much thrown into a broom closet for 24 hours, I think.
I was 36.
It could have been 36 for a long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of her story is also her reconciling what can I feel and sustain and put up with and still maintain a public face that works within the system. And that is a big question. And I thought her brave, because she's detained a couple more times throughout the book. And every time she flashes back to this. And she is really wrangling to put together this deal that will limit the empire's or the emperor's powers. And she's working with all these different groups to kind of make a bill that says, hey, the emperor can't do this, this, and this. And meanwhile, like, her assistant was killed in her house.
And like brutally, they described it as like an attack that took a lot longer than was, necessary.
Yeah. It seemed like a torturous attack. And she's deeply affected by this in the feeling of safety. And it's also very interesting because even in this time, she and her husband have an arrangement, like the same arrangement that's in Andor. It's like, you do your thing, I do my thing. You smile and nod during government functions. They have their arrangement. And there's another Senator Ludd, who's basically on the opposite side of the aisle of her. But they've worked together and they're very close, which mirrors this relationship in Bloodline by Claudia Gray, where Princess Leia and a senator on the opposite, I can't remember his name, a senator on the opposite side of the aisle kind of team up, and they have a begrudging respect for each other. And that's very much this relationship. And I love kind of seeing that in art, like people from opposite sides can respect each other and can discuss things. Because again,
you mean how government's supposed to function? What?
What? Again, it's that reflection of this world. So she was, I thought her storyline was really great.
I did too. I love what you just said about the way we get into her head and the games of chess that she seems to almost be playing with herself as to like how to best present to the people that she needs to continue to respect, trust, and, listen to her. Even though at times it feels like what she has to put out is compromising to how she feels, but she knows that will lead to like a better payout in the end. That's like the lose the argument, win the war kind of thing.
Exactly. Yes.
I didn't think of that. That's awesome. Yeah, I loved learning more about her character. She's slowly becoming one of my favorite Star Wars characters.
Yes.
I think she's so complex and interesting. I thought learning a lot more about her relationship to Perrin, actually, like, this is a side ramble, but I really appreciated that because I thought he sucked in Andor. I was like, who is this loser that's with this, like, goddess of a woman? This, like, powerhouse. But it makes so much sense. Like, not only they have an arrangement, and they were quite literally arranged.
Yes.
Like, they did not choose one another. But I feel like in the book you see how much more respect he has for her and the position she's in, and like there's just more respect between the two of them and the part that he plays. And that's like my little side tangent that was like, oh, okay, cool. He doesn't totally suck.
No, I agree with that. Because I always saw him as a goofy doofus who was like a wannabe Jedi, assumed the Jedi look. Because to me, every time I see him, I'm like, why are you dressed like Qui-Gon Jinn? And your hair's like Qui-Gon Jinn. And I really think he was like, oh, the Jedi look cool. I'm going to like dress like them because... Yeah.
I think he's just a simple guy, but I think he cares. And it's like, you know what? We can't fault the guy for that. Yeah. So, he's just easily influenced by the latest Jedi fashion. No. No, I was going to say,
yes.
Learning so much more about like the depth of her skill and her craft, which as a politician, like it really shined. She's an expert negotiator and she's a brilliant strategist and she's really good with people, which is like, honestly, I think a very underrated skill. And of course, it's in such contrast to like the seeds of the rebellion that are forming over with Bail and Saw. And again, that's the three, parts to the three legs to the table that you need. But I'm going to say this now. I said it when we first signed on to the call, and I was like, I'm going to bring this up when we were recording because I did the audiobook. You read the physical book, and I think you got even more out of it. And that is no hate to the audiobook and their creators. The narration by January Lavoie was like awesome. It really brought me into the world. Her characters were fabulous. But for me personally, there was so much happening. And there were so many like of these deep philosophical undertones, things that I knew I wanted to be highlighting and earring or whatever. Yeah. Sorry to people who think that's sacrilegious to books.
I do.
But like when I had to do it that way because of some projects I had going on for work, and I didn't really have time to sit and physically read a book this last month. But I bought the hard copy because I really want to, because I feel like I missed a lot of nuance. I feel like I missed even like some key things because there's so many characters that were kind of coming in and out. And it's for me, it's not a book you can listen to while multitasking, including driving. Like I had to rewind a couple times and be like, whoa, what the hell just happened? But I brought that up because Mon Mothma's on the cover and she's alone in the Senate. She's like, there's this light shining on her. I feel like she's so much more integral to this story than I even picked up on in the audiobook that I want to go back and revisit. So when I have the time to sit and read a physical book, which should be soon because I'm coming out of production, I'm reading this one again, like immediately.
It's
because of her. Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean about the audiobook because for me, audiobooks are very, very difficult because my mind starts wandering. And then I'm thinking about what I'm having for dinner tonight. And then I'm like, oh, wait, did we just change chapters? What's happening?
Yes, except my mind was wandering into, oh God, like current events that it reminded me of, or where characters were good. I knew they were gonna go, and like I was making correlations to things, and then I'd be like, shit, like I've missed the last 6 minutes of audiobook because I went off into another realm. That's harder to do when you're reading a physical book because you can literally just set it down.
It's funny. Now that I've read the book, I kind of want to listen to the audiobook.
We should flip it. And then another month or two, we should do just a quick little what did we take away from that experience?
That's funny. Yes. Another character, and I feel like Saw in this book was a very important character because he was kind of like the determination of, we have to go to war. But it's a younger Saw, a Saw who, and the author actually kind of says it. He's working on his pitch to get people to join him. And he's trying to figure out what it is that they need to do in order to continue their resistance, their rebellion. And I think Saw is a fascinating character. But I feel like his role in this was just a little smaller in my eyes. Not small, I guess not smaller, but I was more into Bail and
why?
Why?
Because I had the same reaction and I finally put my finger on it.
What?
We never get inside his head.
You're absolutely right. We never get inside it. Yes, he's always like, he's kind of speeching and we see things from his point of view, but not inside his head. You're right.
We're never inside his head. Everything is told from other points of view.
Yes.
And I felt like this was a brilliant choice by Alexander Freed because Saw is incredibly paranoid and very guarded. And it's that paranoia that eventually I feel like kind of makes him lose the bigger picture to an extent. But
yes,
his chapters are told specifically by others.
You're right. You're right. Because Sojin is one of the characters who interacts with Saw a lot, and it's his point.
It's
wow.
his perspective. And so you feel disconnected from him.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
Huh.
I thought that was a great choice.
That is a really great choice.
I can tell I just blew your mind. Sorry.
yeah, you totally did.
You're like, I need a second to think of my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, there's a part of me that's going back is like, is that really real? We didn't really see from it. And it's true. We really don't. I'm sure there's parts where you like hear what he's thinking, but you like, he has this great line. Okay, so Mon Mothma starts going into the speech, and she says, "It is also becoming clear that the worst excesses of his administration will not stop now that Palpatine has secured power. The death of the Jedi was a beginning. Now he plans mass arrests. He plans," and Saw cuts her off. "Who is this speech for?" Saw asked. "Is it for my benefit?" Mon fell silent. I love that because it's just him saying, "How about you shut up and we talk about what we need to do? You don't have to convince me of anything."
Yes. Yeah, he's very straight to the point.
It's very straight to the point, but it's also interesting because Bail early on notes that Saw is working on his pitch speech to get more rebels in his camp. And, all three of them are doing that. It's going around making these pitches, trying to figure it out for themselves. But I also just felt like that was such a Saw line. Who's the speech for? Is it for my benefit?
Don't waste your breath.
Yeah. So it's a great line that I kind of hear as Forrest Whitaker saying. It's like I can hear him say that line, and that's another thing that I really loved about the book. I could see Mon Mothma. I could see Bail Organa. I could see Saw, and it just, now talking about it, when I finished it, I was like, oh, I liked this book. When's book 2 coming out? And spoiler alert, not for another year. It's like,
I know, they're going to marvel us.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like maybe 4 or 5 months. I don't know why I thought that, but I think because they have 3 different authors writing each installment. So I thought it was going to be... I don't think I
realized that. Yeah.
But now we have to wait a year.
What? Okay, I'm going to ask you, because I brought it up earlier. What are your thoughts on the lack of Vader?
I didn't even think about it. And now that's a second thing that kind of blew my mind. Because part of me, I feel like, yeah, of course they're not going to have Vader. Because when you bring Vader in, you got to do something with him. And it's got to be big and it's got to be bad. And so I have a feeling in the second or third book, we'll get maybe some Vader.
I just thought Mask of Fear, I kept waiting for it.
Yes.
I did. I kept waiting for it. And then it was I think it was probably somewhere in the chapter 50 range where I realized this isn't happening.
that Vader's not showing up.
I don't know if I really have a formulated thought on it so much either. I just I find it, I need to sit with it a little bit longer. I actually think it was a very intentional and wise choice because you're right. When you bring Vader in, it's got to be for some diabolical reason. And I think the point of this book was commentary on the fragility of our democratic institution and the manipulation of propaganda and what it takes for people to kind of form rebellion from all sides. And I think you're right. Bringing him in at this stage in the story would have not only distracted from that, but would have, I think, put the characters in a position where they would have had to act differently.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And also the Vader is more of a tool of the known enemies of the Empire. He's not a spy. He's not like let's slowly ferret out Bail Organa.
Yeah.
It's much more like, hey, we think Bail's a problem, and Vader's just like, okay, let me go kill him.
Yeah. That's a good point.
He's not a surgical tool.
No, he's not. And also at this point in the story, I mean, so you're right. Like, I think part of me, this is again, I don't think I totally grokked just how soon after Order 66 this fell. I don't think I realized it was quite literally the same week. I was thinking maybe like sometime, not a lot, but like sometime had passed. And
I do think maybe more than a week had passed, but not a lot of time.
Not a lot of time. And at that point, like in his story, I mean, Vader's probably learning to live as part machine. And yeah, exactly. Like he's probably still really fragile. So I guess that makes sense. But yeah, it's funny. The whole book, I was like, Mask of Fear, is he going to, like, where's he going to pop up?
Well, and I forget if it's within the book, but they talk about the Mask of Fear being the tool of an oppressive government.
Yes, totally. They do. I just wondered if it was a double entendre.
Oh, yeah. No, that's awesome.
I was
really good.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
What did it mean to you? What did Mask of Fear mean to you, Dave?
Well, first of all, it expanded the Star Wars tone for me in the sense of bringing Andor feeling into the novels. Now, I know there's a lot of more serious novels, but for my kind of experience with Star Wars novels, it was, again, I go back to the word serious. It just felt more serious. Mm-hmm. Not even deeper, just serious. I'm going to think of the perfect words at some point, and maybe I'll just tweet it. I'll be like, if you see a one-word tweet, that's the word.
That's the one.
That's the one. It also, because of the relevance of it right now, it felt really dark and heavy at the same, like, really kind of like, and like, I did an Andor rewatch, and then I read this, and now I just started Chris Kimshaw's Death Stars and Democracy, which
Dave.
I know it's just a really kind of depressing time to be a Star Wars
Nemo
fan
or something.
Yeah, exactly. And what happened to Mon Mothma is the part that really stays with me, which was she got her bill passed. She wrangled like all these senators in order to pass a bill against the Emperor. And at the very end, she's kind of abducted by the Grand Vizier, who is the Emperor's right-hand man, you know, the blue guy with the horns. And he was like, congratulations on getting the bill passed. Sorry, it's not going to happen. And she was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, we're just going to veto it and ignore it. And we don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And that, that particularly resonated with current times. Like, what do you do when the government says, yeah, no, not doing that?
Well, I think that's her moment when she realizes that she needs the other legs on the table.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's like, that's the moment where she's like, oh, I was wrong. It's not all just diplomacy.
Yes. And like I said, I feel like it is an important piece that pivots the tone from Revenge of the Sith to Andor. And also filling in all that backstory of how do these people kind of come to terms and then spend 15 more years in this government that they know is a sham. So yeah, what
did it give you any hope?
Well, it gave me hope in the sense that all three were determined to continue the fight in their own way. Yeah,
I agree with that. For me, I kind of touched on it. I knew for me what really just resonated was the fragility of it all. Yeah. There's a line in the book, and I was literally driving when it was spoken, and I wish I had wrote down who said it. I think it was Mon. Propaganda is a bloodless necessity.
Oh, wow.
And this is why I want to reread. So no one hold me to that. Someone's screaming, it wasn't her. It was. I'm like, I'm sorry. It's the audiobook. So I overall just kind of found it like a kind of scary, topical, very relevant look at how fascism takes over government, public opinion, military, kind of all its insidiousness in that way. The use of intimidation by torture from the Empire onto the senators and leadership as a tool to turn allies and colleagues against each other, to sow in doubt or like defiance, resistance, like I don't think is science fiction.
No, not.
And that while the Empire breaks most, it empowered just enough. Like there's enough people who, when oppressed, respond with a bite over submission. And that's what gave me hope when I talk about it being like a mirror. So that was probably what it meant to me.
That's awesome. I like that. That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. I do highly recommend this book. I think it's a great, if you're a prequel fan, if you're an Andor fan, this is just such a great, intense read.
Yes. And if you're going to listen to it, do so doing nothing else.
Yes.
Or very like undistracting things. Like if you're just cooking dinner or something, like, and you can pause and reflect or whatever, like that's. But my recommendation would be like not while you're in a car, because you're going to want to pause, you're going to want to highlight, you're going to want to write stuff down.
You want to think about it.
You want to think about it.
So that's what Star Wars means to us this week. You know, it's really fun. And we've said this. It's really fun to see someone experience Star Wars for the first time. And I think that's what I really enjoy the most about all of this. So Rose Hawk, thank you very much for letting us watch Star Wars.
Yeah. And I hope that she does. I hope she does come back on at some point after she watches the sequels. And
yes, because we got to do the sequel. Yes,
go back and listen to the main episode if you haven't, or the interview if you haven't yet. But she has a hilarious take on where she thinks the sequels are going, and I would love for us to discuss.
Yes. And next week we are talking to Mark Newbold.
Yeah,
really fun conversation with him. He has been a fan since 1978 when he first saw Star Wars in England. He's been a writer for Star Wars Insider since 2006, contributing to My Star Wars, Red 5, and Launchpad sections. And he's the editor-in-chief of Fanta Tracks, which launched in October of 2017.
We love having an original trilogy kid on. So
yes.
Yeah, you should come.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely tune in. It's a really fun conversation.
And if you're liking the show, please subscribe to it. Give us a 5-star rating. It really helps the show attract an audience. Or if you want to, just share it with a friend.
Yeah.
Just copy the link and email it to a friend and be like, hey, this is some Star Wars fun.
Email it to a friend. What year is it, Dave?
Hey, I'm an original trilogy kid, okay?
You can do that.
Oh, that's staying in. I'm sorry. That is so staying in. That is so funny.
I don't mean to email shame.
Don't digital communicate shame me.
Oh my God, you're so funny. Yes, please share the show out in whatever method you deem appropriate for you and your friends.
Until then, may the Force be with you.
And with you. All right. Do we know?
I had a Coke. I'm kind of tired. I had a Coke too. Like, I don't drink caffeine. I've like cut caffeine. Well, I haven't cut caffeine out of my life, but like I'll have one Coke every month or so. Like the last time I had a Coke, football was on. I'm having a Coke right now.
That's funny. I'm eating snowballs, like the Hostess snowballs.
Why not? Yeah.
I popped into a convenience store next to my dentist this morning and they had these.
There's
and
nothing
I was
like a snowball after your dentist. Huh. Let's see, I'm getting my teeth whitening, but let me do some damage and get me a snowball. What is it, like coconut and sugar and icing and chocolate cake? Yeah.
So we're both on a sugar high was my point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Mm-hmm. We'll rapidly get, this will be like 20 minutes. It'll be a 40-minute show crammed into 20 minutes.
Well, it's funny because you're saying, well, you only have like a Coke like once a month is like a treat. I only have snowballs if I'm on like road trips that exceed 2 or more hours. So to have a snowball now, it's a real treat.
Yeah. It's always fun though. Okay.
Oh, man. Okay.
Okay. You know, it's weird. Sometimes I ask myself, is like, am I gonna like get sick of Star Wars or like study it too much? And I find it's interesting that sometimes I'm still finding things that are really new and interesting to me about it. Yeah. Okay, stop. Hi, this is Dave. And before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at StarWarsMeanToYou. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.